Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on our first Hangout of 2025. Lots of stuff to get through in January. It's not the best time for the thing, so let's do it. It's good to start in February. So as usual, we're going to go through a very short presentation of a couple of things that have been going on in the last couple of months since we had the last event. So record and share it, and then we'll have some conversations later on. If you have any questions and it's about the stuff, it's fine. Just feel free to just chat. But if you want to, you can put it in the chat section, and we'll respond as and when. What are we going to talk about today? Just a couple of some changes that were made to the interface that you may or may not have spotted, and a little bit of explanation of why. We want to tell you a little bit about some developments that have started. I've already posted in the forum, but not sure if everyone's seen that yet, which is quite exciting, but early days. And for those, particularly in the UK, I guess, some news about the devices that we've collected from you. So yeah, I think maybe, I don't know, Kris, if you want to talk through the first one.
Yeah, I'll do that one. Okay. So you may have noticed this, that the data which we show for all segments, the detailed data for all the segments, in this detail pane you can select a time interval, and we've reduced that time interval to 14 days instead of up to 3 months. So we've done that to basically control a bit our database cost, because every query is basically costing us. It's with AWS. So we've reduced that to basically reduce the cost of our cloud service. But because we got quite some questions from users, now I don't have access to these 3 months, but that's not right. So it's only the public page where we have limited this for 2 weeks. For your own device in your own dashboard, you can still select like the full period, and you can still explore the full up to 3 months, but then flexible periods. So that's one thing. It's been a bit of a consideration for us to do this. But yeah, I think this is still like the best balance to keep it open, but then still cost effective, let's say. But we don't pay tens of thousands of euros to AWS every month. We don't want that.
I mean, most people viewing the public pages, the open data on all devices, are usually only interested in the most recent, what's happening today. And we show you, I think, roughly a week or so, or 10 days by default, which is fine. That most people need it. It's just if you want to dial now more deeply into that, you'll just need to log into your own dashboard. That's fine. So yeah, just to explain why we made those changes there for you.
All right.
There is this one which came up, which is maybe not directly relevant to this audience here specifically, but yeah, it's again maybe maybe Kris, you want to talk about this one as well, but
I'll jump in here. So what we've done, basically full history. So by start, Telraam is open data by default. So we want, if you start counting, that you also share the counting data with everyone. Actually, almost since the beginning of Telraam, we also had requests of people wanting to hide their data, so that the data is only visible for themselves. Private individuals are asking this, but equally companies, for example, companies who are doing a service for retail, for example, and doing footfall analysis, they will buy a sensor and want the data for them, so they can build services on top of that. We've always held that off for a long time, because we're pretty firm on our open data mission, let's say. But we yielded, let's say. We yielded a bit in the sense that we've made it possible to make the data private, but at the expense. So if there's now a client who wants to have data just for themselves, not sharing, they will pay a higher subscription fee compared to the classical subscription fee. I don't think we have many clients yet, Rob. There's a few that I know of, but not that many. But it's basically to accommodate also that. And if I'm perfectly honest, for this audience, it's for citizens here, this is not clients here. It's for us a way for these companies to basically subsidizing our citizen science approach. If they're paying more for a subscription, that's fine. That means that we are able to still keep our costs low for also just the advocacy groups, basically. So that's how we try to balance. We'll see how it works. There's a few clients who started, but at the moment, I think 3 or 4 or so.
Yeah, one of the ones we've seen is when people like doing trials, they're just testing it and they're not entirely sure that the data, they're not yet comfortable with the data, or they're putting it in places that there's not for public perception, is in their own back car park or something, just to get the trial data, see what it looks like. So it becomes easier to keep it private. So that's been my experience so far. But we'll wait and see. But as Kris says, the main thing for us is we still want to go with open data where possible. So if you do need to go down this route for whatever reason, you pay for the privilege, and
Yeah,
it is possible.
it's basically that, paying for the privilege so that we can keep the cost low for those who don't want to, can pay for the privilege.
Yeah, that's it on that one.
Uh-huh.
This one
Yeah.
is a very pretty little picture, which is a little sneak preview for this audience.
Yep. So
Kris can definitely talk about this one. This is his baby.
baby, it's also, I mean, I don't know if you see these gray hairs, but that's coming from this thing. So also quite early when we started with Telegram, there were questions, can you use this thing outdoor? We've we've taken a long time to do that, and this is iteration 3 and the final iteration of the device, which will be waterproof outdoor. Um, from the design, we have actually incrementally improved and gone for robustness. And this, what's different here is that it's got like a full custom transparent cover. It's the same electronics which is inside, so that's exactly the same. But the thing is completely, I think, IP55, no, IP67 waterproof. So it's able to cope with cold, warm. We have about 30 or 40, I think, now in the field of the old one, but this is the one we expect from March onwards, the final iteration of this one. The primary use is for professionals because this will be way more expensive compared to the ones that you have at home. But nevertheless, there is quite some interest from city authorities, consultancies who, I mean, just to give you some perspective, if you have like radar systems, they're typically a few €1,000, pounds for one device. These tubes which you can see on the road, 800, €900. I mean, they're also expensive systems. So what we're trying to do is to be still a bit low cost here. But yeah, uh, um, trying to compete with those technologies and target the let's say the commercial entities. Again, with the same principle in mind, if we can generate some revenue from these clients, and we can keep the system cost low to keep feeding our let's say grassroots or citizen science angle, which is still the core. So yeah, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this thing, but we're almost there, I think.
Well, I think this is the step to the next thing, which really is to say, 2022 was the development of the S2, launched in the beginning of 2023. We pretty much straight moved on to developing the outdoor. So most of 2023 was the outdoor development, actually a lot of 2024 as well, and obviously the launch process, getting the S2 out there. So now,
Rob, I think you're mixing years, eh? I think we did 2 years for the S2 and we launched early 2023, eh? So,
yes, yeah.
and
So
then,
the development was 22, the
yeah,
launch was 2023.
and
Yeah.
2023 was a lot about getting all the like the small things out of it and the issues out of the S2. So that's that. And then last year, indeed, yeah, basically the whole year was outdoor. But we're close to the end of that cycle as well. So yeah, I think you're hinting here at let's say feature requests or things that we should focus on. Could be sensor, but could also be things on the web platform where you say this is really something which I'm lacking that would be useful. Um, Yeah, we were thinking about launching such a call for feature requests. We've done it in the past to see what users would like, and then we can steer our development there. So I mean, you got privilege in this Hangout to voice your opinions. So yeah, we'll be launching these requests to the user group again.
Yeah, so we'll just lots of new thinking. Basically, the opportunity there is our development team. I can call it a team now because we got a CTO. Yes, exactly. We have a proper CTO now and data person and our developers. So we've got lots of things, capacity to now focus on doing these things. So
In
the one
principle,
thing we
yes.
the one thing we won't be doing is noise. I'll say that for Kris in advance because that's one that keeps coming up.
Yeah. Well, at least not in Telraam. I've got some ideas, but they're only outside of Telraam.
Ah, shall we call that parallel development? Yes,
Yes.
Patrick. Sorry.
Go ahead, Patrick.
So, I mean, a couple of things. The first is the night counting and the reliability of night counting and the subdivision of night counting into at least broad categories. So, vehicles, pedestrian, cyclists, as opposed to cars and lorries, or even just vehicles and others. That's the first, and there's a second ask, but that's the first ask.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Yeah, that that's high on our agenda as
Yeah.
well. So I can already comment on that. So what's being started now, and this is a slow process. So um, we've done this the new sensor which you have. We've done
Mm.
some debugging, and now what we're gonna start is like the next incremental change, but then of the development of this thing. So what we're looking into now is to change the lens, change a few parts of the piece. So the device will probably look the same, but on the inside it might be more changes than you would expect.
Mm.
And the primary focus of changing the lens is to have a lens which is able to have more light revenue, let's say. So
Yeah.
because that's a problem of the lens now.
Yeah.
And that would increase the performance in low light conditions. So
Mm.
that would likely mean, I mean, we're not that far yet, but we will know soon that if you have a bit of artificial light, just a classic street light,
Street
for
light.
example,
Mm.
that should be sufficient to keep the day algorithm, which we have now running basically non-stop. It will not help for like very rural roads, which are super dark, will not work.
Yeah.
But with artificial, I mean, that's at least one of the avenues we're thinking of. It's early days. We've squeezed as much as possible with the current hardware as we can. We can't get any further. We really hit the limit there, but we know
Mm.
what we can do to change on the hardware to fix it. And my guess is somewhere next year we should be able to have like a thoroughly upgraded new sensor, which should be able to do that. It will be a hardware change, not just the
Mm.
software. So
Mm.
the previous one we changed some software over the years, so still same sensor, but to improve the low light performance, we really need to change the lens. Yeah,
Yeah.
that well absorbed. Where that once was high on our list as well.
Well, that's excellent news. My second question is more about software because, as I mentioned earlier, that there's going to be a change in the configuration of roads in my area, and I want to do a sort of before and after. And as you said rightly, there's a transition period as well. So maybe 2 or 3 months before versus 2 or 3 months after. And I'm not entirely sure how to do it with the current software, and
Hmm.
that I can go back 3 months, but I don't need a very sophisticated analysis, but I would like to be able to say uh, weekday traffic, particularly car traffic, between these two time points, and perhaps pedestrian and cycle traffic, which may be inversely related
Hmm.
to any increase or
Yeah.
decrease. Who knows? But
So your need is basically to have like the ability of a simple analysis with an interface which allows you to make a rather simple or no simple
yeah,
these before after comparison, which is
yeah,
currently a bit difficult. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Well, yeah. Well, I just last week I submitted a research proposal for also with that purpose. So full context for that research proposal. the feedback that we're getting from transport authorities, local authorities, is that they have this access to their special dashboard, which they have, but they're not using it because they don't have any time. So even though we've got something which is basically made for their purpose, and then at the same time they get bombarded by citizens who are, I mean, dumping data from Telraam on top of them with like not the right analysis. I mean, they just, let's say, sum up totals from July versus totals from December of the day, which is
Yeah,
nonsensical, but can maybe seasonal effect. So
yeah,
our solution in that project is that we will investigate what is the actual need for doing proper assessment of before after, for example, like
yeah,
comparing periods. So what is the experimental design, let's say, and how do we make very accessible tools for citizens to make
yeah,
this analysis for transport authorities?
yeah,
Because then you solve two problems at the same time. But I think you're a good example. You have time and you have willingness to do this. And I think if you provide this in a scientifically sound way, in a good way that we can say this is the right approach to do it,
yeah,
then the transport authority will accept it and they will be happy because they didn't have to
yeah,
tender a consultant or something to do it for them. So this is something which is I have some ideas about it, but yeah, it's going to be a research because it will require like a specific interface, and
yeah.
I'm we've tried a few things already, and I can see not everything works, so we have to think this through. Yeah, if this research grant works, then we might have it by the end of the year already.
Oh, fantastic. And just out of curiosity, we, through our personal dashboard, have access to data up to 3 months old. Is the older data kept?
Yes, yes, yeah,
Yeah,
you can still download. So you have to see the interface in the personal dashboard is just a direct visualization,
yeah,
and that's limited to 3 months because
yeah,
these queries take too long to make it like super dynamic. That's the
sure.
problem. But what you can do always is you can extract the data in
Right.
either CSV or Excel. But the problem with that is then you get raw data and you have to
Yeah.
reprocess that, and so yeah.
I do have looked at some of the files, as you say, it's raw data hour by hour,
Yeah,
and one almost needs a little program or app to which I really have no access to. I'm sure some of my techie friends might be able to do
yeah.
something, but
No, but
partly it's comparing day, because of course daylight varies, particularly the further north you are.
yeah,
So comparing daytime at one time of year with another, if daytime is a lot longer. Anyway, there
yeah,
are all sorts of variables that you need to take into account.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And there's something in our range of how we produce the data which is missing. So I
Yeah,
think we have the very accessible public data page where you can have very simple interactions. Just
yeah,
select a period and you get some pre-made graphs. Fine.
mm,
You can get
mm,
somewhere with that. That's fine.
mm,
But if you want specific analysis, then that's not enough. Then
yeah,
if you go down, you can get a download of the Excel or CSV files in an accessible format Excel, but which
mm,
still requires you to do some post-processing, a lot of work.
mm,
And then on
mm,
the extreme end, you have like our API, which gives direct access to our database, and that's for techie guys who make their own dashboard and so on and so on.
yeah,
But
sure,
what's missing is what you're describing here. So the
yeah,
ability to make some very yeah clever but not
yeah,
too difficult analysis,
yeah,
which cover for all the particularities, let's say, of the data.
mm,
And yeah, that's something
mm,
we need to fix. Yeah, let's hope we get that research again. I submitted it last week,
yeah,
and it's particularly on that point. So
yeah,
collaboration between citizen local and traffic transport authority. So let's hope.
yeah. Thank you.
But I mean, shoot, I mean, we've got our idea of what we think we should be developing, but
Mm,
it's good that you're confirming. But if
mm.
there are other thoughts, I mean, I'm very curious. So
Don't need
what's missing?
doesn't have to be right this minute.
No, 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 no.
You can email us or pop it in the community. The community is a great place for it because then other people are inspired by it and can comment on it. We can work on it together.
Has
Yeah.
anyone in the community published or discussed analysis tools using Excel or something that can apply to your data sets I just wondered if somebody has done some of the work already.
Yeah.
Well, they may have done, but they may not have shared it.
Yeah, I've seen a few. So in Belgium we do workshops with data. So if you have a project with like 20 devices, then after a year we come together and we analyze their data. Sometimes we prepare from our end, but I've seen a few examples of tech savvy and less tech savvy citizens who made their own analysis in Excel, but they're all offline exercises. I'm not sure if somebody shared. I think we encourage to share, but yeah, doesn't necessarily happen. You can see also the we try to facilitate a bit on Telraam Talks, but not too many people are active there and sharing there, so we should still work on that. Yeah, and to be honest, I think to fill the need, I think it should come from us, that we should have like how you should do the analysis. So it also got a bit of let's say scientific stamp of approval, because our background is traffic engineering as well. But it should then be sufficiently accessible that it's not overly complicated and readily accessible, maybe like an add-on to an Excel dump or something. Yeah. Well, you can raise it. You can try start a thread in Telraam Talks. I mean, I'm sure there's people who've done it. I've seen at least 3 examples of really nice stuff in Excel, but also in own dashboards actually. So they just made it for themselves and not necessarily sharing. I don't know, Rob. Do you know?
I was going to say, I think that some of the people who've done that, who were able to do that, have focused on the API side. So there has been some
True.
back and forth discussions about APIs and stuff, but I don't think anyone has specifically said, here's an Excel tool. But I can imagine that, if one were to post that and say, how can we take a period to do X, Y, Z in an Excel format, solving it once is effectively creating a tool which could be reused with just a different data set.
Yeah.
So it might be something that we could look at and maybe get showing what kind of things people are wanting to study could
Yeah.
give an insight into the kind of reports that need to be written.
It's true. The things I saw were how to say, I mean, charming, but a bit artisanal, let's say artisan. So, I mean, they, they're good, but I can see there's a lot of work in making like data linkage and connections. I mean, and then there's us who have direct access to the data. I mean, we should be able to make something which is, I mean, accessible more. I mean, anyway, it's clear that there's a gap there that we should make something. Yeah. All right.
Great. So, I mean, that's just
Yeah.
great to have a nice conversation, just to show you the kind of things that are happening, the conversations we're having, the kind of funds we're trying to get hold of, and what we're trying to invest in. But yeah, feel free to share your ideas of other things you might want to see as a priority, or if any specific questions around these areas, and see what we develop. That's that area. This last bit is very quick, but probably I don't know if Howard was involved in this, but I think Patrick was. We had an issue with our needing to change the communications partner that we used because of the UK, but actually it's turned out to be it's created a whole series of things which we've spent a long time fixing and investing in. In fact, we hired a whole new member of staff for this. But the result has been great because it has actually improved the S2. We're on 1.18 or 1.18
yeah.
version of our firmware.
I would have hoped that we would have done more firmware updates on the detection script and not on the communication part, but yeah, here we are. Okay.
But yeah, it's all been good. But obviously we had that hiccup. So what happened was we've had to physically return the devices. But as a good responsible hardware provider, we have not just sent them to e-waste. We are refurbished. I have refurbished them. So I've collected over 100. In fact, I think it was 150, something like that, devices from the UK, and I think there's some also in Belgium. And because it involved opening them up, changing the software, changing the SIM card, doing everything else. But the good news is I now have, there's a box load there, Christmas week was
Mm.
dedicated to refurbishing devices. Yeah, nothing's gone to waste. We now have made them as good as the new ones, but because they're refurbished, I'm keeping them separately. So I'm going to be making these available. The plan is to make these available to campaign groups and charities and people who are, want to get started with things, rather than the ones, let's say, like the county councils, etc., who want new, fully warranted, etc., devices. So these are available at a 25% discount, which for the hardware, which will be useful. So I have, I think, 80 or so sitting here next to me. So I'm going to be looking out for places where we can do that. But that's just to let you know that your device has a second life.
Yes.
And yeah, be put back in the field. So yeah, if you're interested in that, let us know. Because that's really, there's some quick updates from us. We're going to stop the recording now, and there we are.